each other through it. Come on and see, good movement draws good movement.
Welcome to Good Movement Draws Good Movement, the podcast where farmers, ranchers, and rural folks can grow relationally through awareness, understanding, and effective communication. Hey, it's T. I'm your host, and I, along with my guests, will be covering topics related to drawing good movement. Things like self and social awareness, brain science, positive psychology, extending grace, and so much more. We'll share tools that can help you understand why you are the way you are, why others are the way they are, and how you can use that to step out of self-told lies with grace and compassion to draw good movement in conversations, relationships, and life in rural America. Let's go draw good movement. Welcome back to the Good Movement Draws Good Movement podcast. Today, I have a friend of mine on as a guest, Will Hudson. Will grew up in Washington and went to college at Eastern Oregon University with an Oregon State degree in rangeland ecology and management. Will also had a passion for horses, starting with 4-H to jumping and collegiate polo, and eventually making his living using them for ranch work. After college, he moved outside of Rawlins, Wyoming to work on the ID ranch and eventually became the manager. After 10 years there, an opportunity came forth to move back to Oregon to manage a much larger ranch. So he packed up his family and headed back west. Because of the remoteness and time he was away from his family, they moved to Jordan Valley, Oregon, and are living on a ranch there now. And I think you actually met Tom before we met. Is that right? Like at a TA branding?
Yeah.
Yeah. You and Cricket were there and he was there, and that was like his annual guy trip. So I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then you and I met in 2018 on the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Young Cattlemen's Conference trip.
Yep.
Like, I think we got paired together that first day at the same table.
Yeah, you and Mary and I.
Yep. So I gave the official bio of Will, but will you tell us a little bit more about you and how you got where you are today?
Well, I was actually kind of raised in town, the town of Goldendale, which is only 2,500, 3,000 people, something like that. So it wasn't that big of a town, but we always had horses growing up. And when I was 14, I started working summers helping ranchers stack hay and move their cows around, and decided I really loved that and kind of wanted to pursue being a ranch manager since I was a freshman in high school. And it was really hard doing the career stuff because it wasn't on the list of all their real life careers, I guess. And after I got my degree in college, I could have went to work for the government, but I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to just go be a rancher. Started out making $1,600 a month being the peon at the ID, and after a couple of years, the manager there quit, and the owners hired me on as the manager at 24, I think, 24, 25, somewhere in there, and I learned a lot of things not to do beginning out the first year. Well, the whole time I was there, basically, but yeah. And then in 2023, the opportunity came to move on to what I thought was going to be my actual dream job. And I jumped in and said yes without really talking about it with my wife. And that caused a whole bunch of problems there. And we're still working through a few of them. But in July of last year, I decided to go a little smaller. I'm actually just a ranch hand now, basically, kind of in charge of some cows and a lot of haying. But in order to be closer to my family, and kids are old enough that they're in school and have sports and activities, and now I have time to be able to participate with all of that stuff.
So I listened to the episode that you were on of the Wild Courage podcast, and you and Jeremy got pretty deep into your story, and there was struggles with alcohol, and all of that. Can you talk to us a little bit about kind of the journey that was from starting to being like knowing you had trouble with it to turning it around?
Yeah, kind of started in high school. Was always friends with the older kids, and for some reason, I thought I needed to get their approval and acceptance by going to parties and drinking beer and hanging out with them. And then when I got to college and I didn't have my mom looking over my shoulder all the time, I really cut loose and became a party animal and kind of started to create a habit of it. I would go, and as soon as I'd get done with class, or I worked for a farmer when I was in school, and I would start drinking and party till 9, 10 o'clock, drive home usually. That way I'd get enough sleep, sleep it off to wake up the next morning, be at work. Then when I moved to Rollins, I had slowed down a lot. I was pretty isolated. I lived in a cow camp by myself, and I would kind of run a dry camp during the weeks, but on the weekends, I would try and make up for it and go out on the town Saturday nights and whoop it up and make an ass of myself. But probably, oh, 2 or 3 years after I became manager, and I'd had a couple of tight calls, I guess, with the owners a little bit about some decisions that I'd made. I was really stressing about that, and they'd considered getting rid of me at one point, but they gave me a second chance, and that wasn't involved with the drinking at all. It was just being young and dumb and not knowing what to do in a drought. So the stress of that started to build up, and then when I got married, I didn't really slow down. But when we were dating, I didn't slow down either. I let her know what I was, and I was always having a good time, and I was a pretty happy drunk. But probably 2 or 3 years into our marriage, I started to realize that I was having a problem, and drinking whiskey in my coffee every morning, and then having a 6 pack of beer stashed under the back seat, and just kind of riding that out all day. And I'd talk to several people telling them that I'd had a problem, and it, they just kind of, oh, you're just you're being and blow it off. And so then the shame cycle would kind of kick in, and I would say, well, I know I have a problem, but they don't think I do. And then I would tell myself that I don't, and get drunk one day and come home just smashed, and wake up the next morning feeling like shit for doing that. And then start drinking again the next day, and it snowballed and snowballed until after we'd had our son. He was 3 months old, I think, at the time, and I finally had decided to dry up a little bit. Then I made it 3 months, and then we went on the YCC trip, which it was a little hard to.
It's a 10-day long party.
Yeah, it was hard to avoid being sober on that trip. But then after that, I got home and I kept telling myself that I wasn't going to jump back into my old ways. And it was about a month after I got back from that trip that I did just keep going. And it got even worse than before I dried out. But I got really good at hiding it. And there's still stuff that I'll tell a story to somebody that my wife Cricket didn't know about and stuff. And I loved cash because I could hide it from her. She watched her bank account like a hawk. And there I was probably didn't hardly draw a sober breath for 6 months or so. And then she went to get a prenatal exam for our daughter in 2019, March 24th, I think it was. She passed me and another guy in town and tried calling me, and I was so drunk I couldn't even talk. And I can't remember. I called her 15 times or something trying to get a hold of her. And when I finally got home, that was it for her. That was the ultimatum. And I woke up the next morning in the spare bed, still had my boots on. My hat was laying in the bed. I decided at that moment that I was done. It was a lot easier to quit than I'd thought. I kind of, after 3 or 4 months, which I guess that year after I'd quit drinking, we had a very bad bout when you run through our wean calves that fall. I lost like 10% of my heifer calves. And then that winter, we had 4 feet of snow in Rollins, which says a lot. Stayed there all winter for 3 months, and I lost 10% of the cow herd. You want to talk about a test, wanting to just go crawl back into a bottle, but I stayed sober and persevered through all of that and started to find Christ a little bit, and he helped me through a lot of it, just praying and reading my Bible and getting into that stuff. And then it kind of became part of my identity that I was the guy that the party animal that had cleaned up, and people didn't really believe me for about a year. And then finally I started to get more friends, and people actually seemed like they enjoyed my company instead of just being the fun guy on the weekends. After we left Wyoming, and right before, I guess I'd given my 30-day notice to leave to come here, nobody really knew out here about my story and how I'd been before and that. So I always I felt like I always needed to tell people that I was recovering, and drinking was part of the culture at the other ranch. So it was always hard to connect with the other guys and whatnot. So after I give my 30 days notice, I decided to fall off the wagon and become one of the guys for a few days. And that lasted about a week. And it was just like I quit. I hit the ground running again. And it scared me because I used to tell people that I didn't want it or need it more. But it turns out that I didn't. I want it every day, but I realized that I don't need it anymore, if that makes sense. I've talked to a few of the guys around from there after I'd left and apologized for how I acted. I still count March 29th as my day I was sober. I just kind of relapsed for a week or so. But life is good now. I've learned to appreciate my family and my story, and a lot of why I drank in the first place, which is a very scary path to go down, but it's worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Do you feel comfortable telling us a little more about why you started drinking and what kept you drinking?
Yeah, a lot of it was just kind of started in my childhood. Like I never felt good enough at certain things. The appreciation was there, but it wasn't voiced, I guess. And I just constantly, the only time I subconsciously, I guess, felt good was when I was drunk and happy. It made me happy because it pushed down all those bad feelings. Eventually, it snowballed into shame and why do I do this so much? Why? And I just kept trying to drown them out. And it eventually, you can't drown them out. You got to quit drinking and face your demons and get rid of them.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with Gabor Mate, but I read one of his books and then I binged everything else that he wrote.
I listened to the audio books of his.
Yeah. So in the realm of Hungry Ghosts was like, well, all of his stuff is mind blowing, but in the realm of Hungry Ghosts, I was just like, my jaw was on the floor the whole time when he was talking about why people get addicted in the first place. And just because it's not a substance doesn't mean you don't have an addiction, and just all the things that we do to numb the pain that we can't face. And like I've said on this podcast before, I was comfortably numb for most of my life and I didn't take a substance or ingest anything to do it. I was just really, really good at being numb.
Yeah. I struggled with still not being good enough or not loving myself enough, and just kind of I throw myself into work now, which I have to be really careful about too, because everywhere you go, if you're willing to work 24 hours a day, they'll take it from you.
Yeah, which you saying that brings back when you were talking about the culture at the other ranch and drinking was just part of the culture, that's it. Like, our culture does not set us up to succeed. Like, all the guys that wanted you to be the fun, happy drunk will.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really think about it at the time. I needed a complete emotional dump when I fell off the wagon. And my wife called me out on it. And she goes, "Why are you trying to get acceptance from these guys? Like, what are you looking for?" And I clicked in my head, no, that's actually why I was doing it, was I wanted them to accept me. And there was a jaw dropping. That's when I decided that I was done again and don't need to do it again.
That's so, I mean, I talk about honest questions on this podcast a lot, and that's so awesome that Cricket was able to ask you that honest question and you were actually able to take it and like reflect on it and get something out of it.
Yeah. That whole experience was pretty rocky for our marriage, but since we'd actually worked together to find this other job and made sure she was on board and all of that, and then our connection started to come back, and we communicate more now than we ever have.
That's awesome.
And we took a course this last winter on the grief recovery. And you go through relationships in your life, your mom, your dad, and your spouse, and you write out everything good and bad that they've done to you, and then you write them a letter. And I still need to write myself a letter, but that was life changing, that whole experience.
If somebody else wanted to look into that, where would they find that? Is it like an online deal?
Yeah, it was online. Seth Dahl is the guy's name. It was called the Emotionally Whole Families, but he just changed his name or his group deal. Let's see if I can find what it's called now. Anyhow, he's based out of Florida, and I got to know him through Wild Courage. He is so good. His story is crazy, and he was in drugs and all that. But anyhow, yeah, just look up Seth Dahl on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. I will do that. And then we'll put the link in the show notes for anybody who's interested in looking into that. But let's talk about Wild Courage a little bit, because I followed Wild Courage on Instagram for a long time, but I'll be honest, I didn't listen to the podcast until I saw that they had you on. And then after I listened to your episode, I binged so many episodes, and like Jeremy's story, all the stories that he shares on that podcast are so incredible. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but you go to some of the fireside chats, right?
Yeah,
Is that what they're called?
they just call them fires. It's a bunch of dudes hanging around a campfire.
And they have fires like scattered across the country.
Yeah, I think they announced. I went to one last week, and there's over 50 of them now. 2 or 3 in Canada, and they're scattered all over the U.S.
Yeah. Okay. So we meet virtually. It's a group of women. But whenever I have announced this group is open, I'll have a man or two that's like, what about something for us? And so I've started pointing people to Wild Courage and the fires. So would you mind talking a little bit about what that is like the experience of going to a fire?
Yeah, you don't have to be a Christian to be it, but it's a Christian-based organization. So they start every fire off with prayer and kind of bless the space and just relax everybody so that they feel protected and open to share what's on their heart that evening. Usually they check in, rate A from 1 to 10, and then you expand how you're feeling. And it could be, one night we were there was one guy, he said he was a 10. His kid had got this big job deal, and another son had been in a big sports game or something. And then he finishes his story. The guy next to him was thinking about just done with it all. And it was so easy how those guys handle it. After he got done telling his story, we kind of got quiet, and you just sit in that space for a few seconds and just kind of relax into it. And then you go to the next guy and maybe he's a 5. And usually there's about 15 to 20 guys there. They're range in age from 18 to early to mid 70s. And so there's not one guy in that whole circle that can't relate to each one of you in some way or another. They don't allow preaching, teaching, or giving advice. You kind of just, you can ask questions to stimulate thought, but you don't. You just let them tell their stories on where they're at and just sit in it with them. It's life changing to just get out what's on your heart at that moment. Just get it out of your body and have 20 other guys sit there and just listen to you intently and or focus on you and actually seeing you with no judgment and open hearts. I can't describe the feeling. It's every time I've felt a lot better when I left. And then other nights, I show her the audio off the video talk of a guy sitting there with what's left of a roll of wire that he had and was just kind of contemplating on 40 years of his life. And then his wife makes fun of him at the end of the video, but they split it up into 2 pieces to where, like, what's an item you've had for however long that kind of bring good stories. And then the second part was how you invalidated you. And that was a really interesting, stimulating conversation too. It's not just whatever's on the leader's hearts that evening is kind of what we do.
That's so cool to just have a space where you can go and be held and have people witness your story without trying to fix you.
Yeah. That's the biggest part of it, is just telling your story without judgment from others and getting it out. And they're very strict on the confidentiality. Everybody that's at the fire, they don't go back and bark to their neighbor or their wives of, so-and-so has this problem or whatever. You just sit in it with them and listen to them.
Safe space.
Yep. Through that and just kind of what I've been feeling called to this week, I'm going to go speak with my preacher about maybe getting some counseling training myself and kind of get that right.
That's awesome.
After the podcast came out, I've had a lot of friends and several random people just kind of call me to talk to me about their story and their problems. And I just would like to help get them or have the tools to get them and others through their stuff. There's a need for it in the cowboy culture.
Mm-hmm. That's so awesome. You had people reach out to you like that, and then you had people like me who are like, come talk on my podcast.
Well, the news is out now. I haven't really told anybody but my wife. We kind of talked about it. And so we'll see where it goes. I went to one of the Wild Courage retreats last year, and those are amazing too. It's 3 days of crying your eyes out, but not just for yourself, but for your brothers that are there. It was pretty life-changing too. But one of the leaders approached me about maybe thinking to use the gift that I have to listen and not judge people and to see people with an open heart. So I've kind of been searching for an individual to use as a conduit to figure out how to do it. And our pastor here, which I've only known for 6 months or so, is who I felt I needed to go through. So see where it goes.
That's great. And now that I know that, I'm going to poke you.
Yeah.
Keep moving with it.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'll need it.
I'm a pretty good ledge pusher. If I know somebody's standing on a ledge and they just need a little nudge, I'm pretty good at pushing. That's awesome. And also, like you said, you went to the retreat and you cried your eyes out and it was awesome. But that's not something you hear cowboys say very often. I cried my eyes out and it was awesome.
No.
And so, like, you saying that, Wild Courage facilitating that, like, that just makes me so hopeful for where rural America ranching cowboy culture is headed.
Yeah. we've all got those emotions stuck in us. And guys are just so good at suppressing them that you got to get it out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So good at suppressing. I mean, rub a little dirt in it and get back on that buckskin. When that's what you grow up with, there's no room to emote.
Yeah, or I'll give you something to cry about. Well, may take 30 years, but once you finally figure out to cry it out, it's a whole lot better.
I mean, I'll give you something to cry about. They did. They gave us something to cry about, and then we got in trouble when we did cry about it.
Yeah.
And then it takes your whole life to realize that you actually just do need to cry about it.
Yep. And that at the retreat, there are some of the manliest men you've ever been around. And those guys are usually the ones that get it out the hardest, not just at that retreat, but even at some of the fires. The guys that are hiding it the most, when they finally release it, it's amazing the transformation it does to them.
And like it does something to be witnessed in that. And it also, I feel like when you witness somebody else release like that, it changes you too, not just them.
Yeah. Yep. You can't describe the feeling, but it's such a good feeling inside when you see them finally breaking down and realizing and making that transformation in their life. It, I don't know, raises the hair on the back of my neck and makes me feel so much joy.
It gives me a warm feeling. Like my whole body gets warm when I witness somebody like have that aha moment. I don't even know if that's the right way to describe the moment, but like when they can release and recognize that you don't have to be strong like we've been taught.
Yeah.
Or maybe not that you don't have to be strong, but that strength isn't what we were taught.
Yeah. Strength is in being vulnerable like that, I think,
Yeah.
but not in today's culture.
So we just kind of glossed over the fact that you played polo.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's probably the funnest thing you can do on the back of a horse. You're just going flat out and you get to whack the snot out of a ball. The collegiate polo was a little different. We played in an arena. It was a soccer ball about the size of a softball that we hit, but I did get to play the actual field polo during the summers. And you're just going full tilt for 8 minutes at a time. They call them chuckers, but they're like quarters. There's 4 of them in a game. And yeah, it's pretty dang fun.
And you ride an English rig, right?
Yep. Yep. And there's no knee rolls or anything. The stirrup leathers are just flat against the horse. So it's all in your legs. And I was fortunate enough, since I knew how to ride English and I could ride crappy horses, that if we had a piss head, I always got stuck on it. Got in a couple of pretty good wrecks, but for the most part, it was a lot of fun. It worked to our advantage in college, because in college, each team supplies the horses, and then you just up one round the horses they rode, and then the next round the horses we rode. So I'd always have to sacrifice 1 or 2 chuckers to ride a junker so that we could give them the horse too.
So talking about the polo horses and the junk horses brings me to this next question. But like, have you seen your interactions with your animals change since you've learned how to emote and dried up and like done some good healing work?
Oh, for sure. I've got a bond with all of my horses right now. There's a couple I can't quite walk out and catch in the pasture, but yeah, my horses, my dogs, they're all more gentle and more willing to do what I ask now, because my mindset is more clear, and I'm more clear on when I'm asking them to do something. I don't lose my temper. Same even with handling cows out in the pasture or whatever. If I don't have sleep or whatever the night before, I'm kind of grumpy and I'm hollering and yelling a lot. It's because the cows are feeding off of me, my movement, and they're not cooperating. And then the next day after I go back out there, get a good night's rest, and they go. It's all related. But yeah, in the last 7 years, I've noticed a huge difference in all my animals, my family, everybody.
So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you now that you've announced that you're going to look into some counseling stuff, how and where would they go about doing that?
I got Instagram. WLAZH is my Instagram handle. And I guess my email, we can put it in the show notes.
We sure can.
It's probably going to be 6 months to a year before I'll be able to do anything. But yeah, no, even if you want to just email me or message me on Instagram, I can give you my number and we can just visit and I'll just sit and listen. I've said it before, and there's no judgment on my side. I really have a heart for listening to people and letting them tell their story. And if I need to go into more details on my story and how I worked through things or overcame things, I'm more than happy to sit down and visit.
Yeah, because we've condensed years of healing into 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wrap it up, but I just want to say a huge thank you to you for coming on and sharing your story here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having. I hope I can help somebody out.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you. If you found value in this episode, I'd love for you to share with others who might also benefit from tuning in. Share by word of mouth, send it in a text, take a screenshot and post it on social media, or share however you prefer. And if you haven't already, hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Until next time, draw good movement.